Well, welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga 960. Well, that was a really interesting conversation with Jake Pedler, who owns an establishment down in Port Credit and is, I guess, the current chairman of the Port Credit BIA. And I wanted to reach out to someone else that runs a restaurant bar that I've had the pleasure of going to on several occasions, actually, not only for dinner and drinks, but we used to have a lot of breakfast in his establishment for the Port Credit BIA. And that is John Pappas, who is the owner and manager of the Crooked Q in Port Credit. John, welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me today.
So our pleasure. Tell me, and I know this is probably obvious, but I think a lot of our listeners are going to be interested. How has COVID-19 impacted you and your business?
Wow, it's a big question because on one hand,
it's called a softball.
Yeah, but it's been truly devastating business wise. Really, a lot of decrease in revenues, but it's also been hard mentally to deal with the ups and the downs. Sometimes you have good days, and then sometimes you have bad days, and then sometimes you think things are getting better, but then the news generally just gets worse.
Now you've, invested, I think, a fair amount of money. You've got patios out front on the sidewalk. You put in a whole bunch of heaters. Has it been a worthwhile investment?
Yeah, definitely. Anything that we invest in a business to make it better is always worthwhile. I feel fortunate that we had made those investments a couple of years ago. And because procuring patio heaters or any sort of roof or wind barriers, you can't find that stuff because everything got sold out. So I was lucky to buy that stuff early. And over the years, you really put a lifetime of investment into your business. So it's not just about investing into your personal bank accounts or anything like that. When you own a business, you're always investing in the business. So
now, what have you done inside the restaurant?
Inside, we've increased our protocols. There's lots of plexiglass. We've removed a lot of seating to increase the distance between tables. We have a lot more sanitization stations, a lot arrows on the ground, for example. We basically follow all the protocols that are required.
Now you've got a bunch of pool tables, billiard tables at the back. What have you been able to do with those? Have they been operational?
Very little, actually. When we were open in the summertime in our greatest capacity since this started, we would have the odd person playing pool, but really has been pretty much nothing since the whole pandemic started.
Really? Is that because people themselves have chosen not to play, or because you put extra rules on, like you have to wear a face mask or something?
Yeah, we put extra rules on it. You would have to wear a face mask while playing pool. So some people would just play and they wouldn't be able to eat or drink at the table. So it made it a little less fun, I guess.
And what have you done in regards to rent? Have you been able to take advantage of any of the government assistance in regards to rent?
Well, fortunately for my sister and I, who owns the business with me, we own our building. And the wrinkle on the story there is that, like most people, we have a mortgage on the building. And unfortunately, the banks are not helping us like they did in March. Originally in March, the banks allowed a 6-month deferral on all bank loans, personal and commercial, but now they don't. So originally that deferral was mandated by the federal government, and that ran out. And this time around, our bank and most other banks are not playing ball with their customers. And so this is something we've lobbied hard for.
That's really interesting. It almost puts you at a disadvantage versus people that lease their buildings, where they could get 50% of the rent from the federal government and the provincial government. And you're not able to get those government monies.
Well, the government programs, I believe I'm pretty in tune with what's coming up. The federal rent subsidy has lapsed. It lapsed at the end of September. So for October and November, businesses have not been able to get any rent subsidy. But as I understand, it's going to be about another month or so. But really, the new rent subsidy, as I see it, looks actually improved. And hopefully businesses will be able to access that money. It's going to go straight to the renter, not the landlord. And I think that this will be a better situation for everyone.
But you still won't be able to access it, right?
Well, yeah. Well, technically, I can access it because we own the building in a separate company, so we can and our business pays rent to the holding corporation, so we can access that money.
What do you think about the government response? So you've had this two different rental programs, the one that was initially launched, and now this different one where the money's going straight to the tenants. You had the SERP that went to employees, and I presume a bunch of your employees probably took advantage of that during your closure time periods. You had the city that allowed a bunch of different restaurants to make use of some sidewalks or the lane of parking. What do you think the government's response has been like?
Well, there's a lot what you say there. I think I'll first start with the wage subsidy. So what we call CERB and wage subsidy really benefited the people on the lower income of the scale. So say, for example, someone had an entry position as a host or a dishwasher. I think they did better because, their income wasn't the greatest in the first place. And often those are younger people who live at home mostly. And we don't begrudge those people for making extra money. But as you climbed up the ladder, say, for example, a general manager or a top chef who would be making a lot more money, those programs topped out at $2,000 a month taxable, which is extremely low for someone who, we have staff, or I have a manager, for example, who has a single dad with 3 kids, and his rent is $2,100 a month, and has a necessary car payment of $350 a month. So $2,000 from the government when someone shuts down your business is certainly not enough.
Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen with Port Credit, with Streetsville, with Main Street retail and restaurants?
Well, we're hoping that the federal government responds with some new money for businesses that are affected by this crisis, and fast. From what I understand, in the next month or two are critical for businesses' survival, and through no fault of their own. So we're hoping that our federal government can get that money out to us fast as possible, so that businesses can be saved. And let's not forget that when it comes to recovery, we'll be the first businesses to hire people back. So all that unemployment will bounce back very quickly if we save our businesses, and we can get people back to work in 6 months or 8 months when the good weather hits and the vaccine is in full strength.
So, most people think that a vaccine is going to be, a couple of months to get distributed widely enough that we're back to normal, which may be when we're back to good weather in the spring, hopefully by then. So that's another, 6 months away. Can you and the other restaurants and the other retail shops on Lakeshore Boulevard, Lakeshore Road in Port Credit survive that long?
Let's hope so. We'll do our best. I know that our government is working hard. I've been advocating, our Port Credit BIA has been advocating, and they're listening. And, as with all government, it takes a while for the money to flow. And I think that I commend the government mostly for their efforts. Just sometimes certain businesses fall through the cracks. There's a lot of businesses who have got affected by this crisis who you wouldn't think might be affected by the crisis. They're more like collateral damage. Whereas restaurants and gyms, they're out in front because it's always mentioned on the news that they got closed. But for example, you might have another business, say, a local martial arts club who can't teach their students, or we have in Port Credit, we have a top bridal salon, North America famous, and their business is down 90% because the wedding industry got decimated. So, and then to local bakeries, it's widespread and everybody's suffering, and we need help.
So I drove down Lakeshore on the weekend, and there's not a lot of signs, but there's probably more for lease signs than I've seen in the past. Mm-hmm. And Black Friday is coming up, which is typically thought of for the retail businesses, the day that a lot of retail stores finally go into the black after losing money. And if the retail stores aren't allowed to open up for full business during the Christmas season, what is going to become of Main Street retail and restaurants? You think it's going to come back? you're pretty positive the government's going to come in, help you bridge the problem, and we're going to come back.
I always have hope. But truthfully, we hope those businesses survive. It is the lifeblood of our community. And some big box stores, for example, are thriving. The Costco's of the world and the Walmarts, and those stores seem to be busier than they were before. And it seems like the small businesses are the ones that are most affected. So if there's anything I can say to the general public is to try to support your small business and your local business as much as possible. And but given the restrictions, that's hard to do because, for example, at my restaurant, we're allowed to have 10 people inside. Normally, my capacity is over 400 people. So I can't make much on 10 people inside where normally compared to my normal capacity.
Are you going to open with only 10 people?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to open with only 10 people allowed?
So far, we keep it open just because we want to keep our main staff employed. We've winterized our patio outside, so there's about another 20 seats out there. So even though we have a minimum skeletal staff, we'll try to keep it open.
Oh, good luck in that regard. You don't have, I don't believe, of live entertainment, but some of your peers down on the strip do have live entertainment. The live entertainers have got to be desperate too.
Right. I recently went on the Tom and Rick show. They are great guys. They're fantastic entertainers, and their industry as well has been decimated because there was a lot of restrictions put on live music. Some of my neighbors who run great restaurants have a lot of live music, and it's not something that we've done, but they do, and they do it really well. I think Port Credit was one of the most famous places around for live music, and hopefully by next summer, we'll get it all back.
So if a government expropriates your property to put in a road or something, they have to compensate you for the fair market value of your business. What they've effectively done is expropriated your business, albeit not forever, but for a certain period of time. Why do you think they don't have to compensate you fully for the value of the business that you've lost?
Well, I think partly what happens is that my industry is pretty small. And being that Toronto and Peel were the first to be affected on this second wave, we are the start of the wave. So it hasn't really caught up to the public consciousness yet to put pressure on the politicians to act quickly. Number two, another way you could look at it is that I've been basically fired by the government. And that would, if you're fired from your job, you are subject to employment standards. You could look at it that way. And then you would be compensated handsomely by, I've been in business for 25 years. But I really can't look at it that way. I will do my best to just pull through. Really, it's about the here and the now and just make it through the next 6 months and then try to improve from there.
Well, I got to congratulate you with your attitude. I think that your resilience is fantastic. I'm honestly very worried about Main Street retail. I think it's going to be hurt, and I think there's going to be a bunch of restaurants, a bunch of retail stores that we're living, month to month, lease payment to lease payment, mortgage payment to mortgage payment if they own the facility, and with no business for a while or a very dramatically reduced business, they're going to be worse off. Now, yours is one of the more popular establishments, and obviously you've got the benefit of longevity in Port Credit and a loyal clientele, and you own the building. So actually, it might be beneficial to you because some of your competitors may not be around. But I can't believe that's actually healthy for Port Credit long term.
Well, to be honest, when you own the business, it's not just your income that you lose; it's all the expenses that you're still on the hook for. So, for example, you still have to pay your property taxes, you still have to pay your hydro, you still have to pay your rent. There's dozens of expenses that people don't know about, and so what you end up doing is just accumulating debt and debt and debt. So, if you're able to take on all this debt, maybe you can survive. It's extremely unfair. Most of the burden of this has been put on the small business community and the hospitality industry specifically. So we feel like we're carrying more load than our fair share, whereas respectfully, a lot of businesses are doing just fine, or people that work, in certain sectors where their paycheck is guaranteed. It's just natural for them not to realize how difficult it is for affected businesses.
Have you had any infections that you know of from your restaurant?
We've had zero. and none of my staff, fortunately, have been affected. And if we looked at the data in Peel region, 0 cases were actually transmitted in restaurants, and that's according to our MPP and our mayor, and also the mayor of Brampton. So that's also an extra kick and sorry, an extra punch in the gut, I should say, because when you're doing everything right and you're following all the protocols and you haven't contributed to the problem, and then your government is the first to shut you down, it makes you feel like a scapegoat. And then when they don't support you, then you feel like a sacrificial lamb. So I guess I'm a goat and a lamb.
If 0 infections have come from the restaurant bar industry, why were you closed down? Why is that fair?
Well, it's not
and
fair.
Why is that even a good decision? Like, well, it doesn't sound like a smart decision.
It's not fair, but according to the doctors, any area where people spend a good amount of time together in the same room, and obviously when you're in a restaurant, you have to take your mask off to eat and drink. So no matter how many protocols we follow, we're still deemed high risk to transmit the virus, even though they congratulated us on doing a good job on our part. We're still deemed the highest risk out there.
Well, I got to tell you that I'm impressed with your resilience and your attitude. I think that you've been unfairly put into the position that you have been put in, because I don't think there's been a whole lot of infections in bars or restaurants. Actually, in restaurants particularly, bars where people are at a stand-up bar, maybe a lot more risk of transmission
right now, right? Since
exactly.
March. So everything is technically a restaurant. There are no bars since March. There are no nightclubs. So everything that's been in a restaurant setting has been under COVID protocols, with tables 6 feet apart, with servers wearing masks, with extra sanitization, with requirements that before you sit down and when you go to the washroom, you wear your mask, all of those things. So really, using the term bar is erroneous at this point.
Okay, I apologize. If there's no incidents of infections from restaurants, I don't understand why you were forced to close down. And, you can go to a local grocery store to get food, but you can go to the Quirky to get food as well. And for some people that aren't good cooks, and I'll be one of those, it may be actually an essential service to be able to come and get someone to cook me a good meal.
Well, it's my opinion that all businesses are essential. And that I don't pass judgment on any business. I don't think any business should be closed down, but if we have to get closed down, we need to be supported. It is hard for us to see that when I go to my local Costco, that thousands of people roll through there a day, and I see so many people there, and meanwhile they deem my place with 10 people in it dangerous. So that's a little tough to take. I know it's unfair, but at this point, it's hard to advocate for keeping open, because I almost think that ship has sailed. So what we're really asking for now is to be supported, because we almost feel like there's an inevitable lockdown coming. And so once that does happen, we're hoping that they do support us.
Are you doing takeout?
We do a little bit of takeout, but our business is not really geared towards that. There's plenty of the sort of the fast food type of businesses. That's what they're good at. They have, cheaper food than we do, and really takeout for us is not wouldn't make us any money.
What do you specialize in at the Quirky Q? What type of food?
I'd say we're in the premium pub category, so you can get everything homemade, with everything from pizza to wings to nachos to burgers to steaks to pasta. So our menu is very big. But what we concentrate on is homemade foods. So everything from our burgers, we make from hand. We cut our own fries. We make our own pizza dough. We make our own sauce. So when you're not going to be surprised by anything on our menu, you're just going to know that it's really good.
Somebody told me that last week they ordered one of your takeout burgers, and it was absolutely spectacular.
Yeah. It's just a hand-pressed regular burger with this, a regular fresh bakery bun and real fries and real ingredients. So that's about as homemade as you can get. So,
and you say you've got 20 seats outside in the benches with heating and winterized?
Yeah, I'd say it's 3/4 winterized, because you can't have full walls outside. What we do have is we have glass partitions on the outside, and then we have a commercial canopy on the top. And with the heaters, it's mostly open air, but we put the heaters out there and it does trap in some of the heat. But people are getting used to it. They come and they dress warm and they're ready and they say, I'm still going to enjoy my patio. And when the sun is shining, it's actually quite comfortable.
Well, sometimes I've been on your patio when the sun is shining, and frankly, it's pretty hot.
Yeah, it can be. It can be.
Should we make reservations? And if so, is there a website?
Right, crookedq.ca. You make a reservation. Everybody is required to make a reservation. Sometimes people do show up at the door and then we make a reservation for you on site. But we, as with everybody in our industry, we have to contact trace and get the information of every client. And that's to add on to that. We're really the only industry that contact traces, I suppose, because you don't have to give your name when you go to one of your grocery stores or one of your retail stores. So really our industry has done all these protocols above and beyond. And we feel like coming to, and we're professionals, we're trained, we're safety trained, we're inspected, and we may just be safer than entertaining at home.
John Pappas, owner of the Crooked Q down in Port Credit on Lakeshore. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing with us some of the challenges of operating during COVID-19. And I got to tell you, I admire your resilience. Good luck. I look forward to seeing you in your patio very soon. Stay with us. We're going to take a break and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute.